everyone, and welcome to Classical Chats. I'm Hayden,
And I'm Liz.
and welcome to The Crown Breakdown, where we review and break down The Crown, Season 4, episode by episode. This week, we are at episode 5, titled Fagan, which discusses
Yes.
the infamous break-in in 1982. But before we get started, we are recording this on a Sunday, and USA Today just released that Netflix will not be putting disclaimers at the front of all the Crown episodes. This article went live about 20 minutes ago. It is December
Oh
6th.
dear God.
Yes. So to remind everyone, the Crown this season has fallen under a lot of scrutiny within the royal family, specifically that it is depicting everything in too much of a negative light, and people are taking it as biblical truth. They're taking it at face value. This is what happened. And we know, Liz and I both know, that it is not what happened. It is a fictitious retelling of
hmm
history. And the British government came down and requested that Netflix put a disclaimer, much like, uh, much like how the episodes involving bulimia and other eating disorders have a
hmm
disclaimer that, hi, this is happening. They wanted another one on every single episode, not only in the fourth season but in previous and future seasons, to remind everybody that, hi, this is fake. This is
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah.
And as Liz and I have discussed off camera, we sort of quietly giggle because they say it's fake in every
Yeah.
single interview.
Yes, absolutely.
So it dropped just today, within the hour,
Oh
that
wow.
they are not going to put disclaimers on the front of the episode, basically saying, y'all know better. Y'all should know better.
And that's news to me. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
for your breaking news watch and
The task at hand, so episode titled Fagan. This episode is about the 1982 break-in with Michael Fagan. And as we've always done, Liz, first impressions. Episode starts, watch a couple minutes. What are your
yeah.
first impressions?
So this episode does a little bit of what had happened and then 3 months prior.
Mm,
And so for me, I had never heard of this break in before. This was
mm,
news to me. Again, Hayden is the one who is up to date on all of the British history and all of that stuff. I am the person who tends to be pretty clueless other than like the large facts.
mm-hmm.
But introduction, I'm just like, oh, wow, oh, interesting. And now I will preface for the rest of the season, I have watched all of these episodes now going on 3 times.
Yes.
And so to me, it's the information is somewhat staler than on maybe first or just second view. I'm
Mm-hmm.
now watching this for the third time. But in terms of just the episode as a whole, you really get to see at the beginning of this really what Britain is like during this time.
Yes.
And it's kind of disturbing to think that it was not that long ago.
Yeah, this is in our parents' lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this episode is a little bleak. This episode isn't
Yeah.
fun. But history that we do know. So it is true, in 1982, Michael Fagan did break into Buckingham Palace twice. Now, here's what we know. It happened. He drank a bottle of wine, broke the vase, and he had some conversation with the Queen. Now, Michael Fagan is still alive. His
Yes.
picture is featured at the end of the episode with a little epilogue about he did serve time at a mental institution. He is now free. He was in a band. Cool, great, wonderful, awesome. But one thing in the book that I read about Her Majesty the Queen and another sort of like review that I had kind of read. One thing that Peter Morgan and the writers had problems with approaching this episode is Michael Fagan's story about what happened has been inconsistent. And what the palace aides that have gone on record that said what happened are all kind of inconsistent. So in some stories, he sat and talked with the queen for 10 minutes. Some, he just stood there and was like kind of weird. Some, it was, he asked for a cigarette. There's enough inconsistencies there that gave Peter Morgan and the writing team carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. And Michael Fagan even went on record and said, hi, that's not really what exactly happened. You have the layout of her bedroom at the time wrong. But his story, he went on record, said her room isn't laid out properly. Yeah, he remembered a lot. I read one article, I believe it was the Washington Post or a more reliable source than People magazine, but Michael Fagan did go on record and just had a blanket statement that it kind of went like that, but what happened in the bedroom isn't what happened in the bedroom, which is fine. Peter Morgan is using
this is a fictionalization.
Yes, it's a fictionalization, and Peter Morgan is using this more as a vehicle to tell the story, and he's not necessarily worried about this because there's enough inconsistencies. He's now using it as a way, i.e., I'm comparing it to the film Titanic, where the core characters are real, but they did that so they could kind of tell a greater story. They've made this scene kind of fictitious so they could just tell a greater story at hand. But Liz is right. So the episode opens and we see a bunch of news clips. Break in here, break in here, break in this. We just get a bunch of news clips and you get told, oh my goodness, a break-in's happened. Oh my God, what happened? Then we have an immediate flashback 3 months earlier, and then we get introduced to the character of Michael Fagan. And this episode we're outside the palace.
I'm going to go ahead. It spends a good chunk, and I actually measured it out. It spends the first 8 minutes just introducing Michael Fagan as a character and what is going on in Great Britain at this time. It's not until the 8-minute mark that we get the Queen and Margaret Thatcher.
And one thing I really appreciate from a storytelling standpoint is it's like a drop in his life. We don't, it's not like an introduction to a film. We're getting introduced to this character. We just dropped in his life, and you have to figure out what's going on in his life based off the cues that the story's telling. I did have a weird comment, though. In all the scenes with Michael Fagan outside the palace, one, they use the bird's eye camera lens again, and they used it excessively in the film The Favorite, and I just don't like it. I don't like how everything's all like it's just weird.
Yeah.
And it felt as if they were taking a page from like an independent art film, or they like ripped from Wes Anderson, because when you're with the royal family, everything's level and even, but everything's kind of like off center, so you can still see the environment. But when you're with Michael Fagan, especially on these wide establishing shots, there's a lot of establishing shots here to make we're outside the palace. At some point I made a note of why is this shot here. There's some, like, after things sort of repeat, which we'll get into in a minute, but the actual shooting of this episode, when you're with Michael Fagan outside the palace with the people, everything's really balanced. The shots are really balanced. He's always in the center. Everything's symmetrical. Which is why it reminds me a little bit of Wes Anderson. And with the bird's eye lens, it was like, why are we with the bird's eye lens again? I just don't like the bird's eye lens. But we sort of get the same.
You digress.
Yeah, I digress. Why? It's like in our podcast episode, I went off on a tangent about why everybody's suddenly discovering Catherine O'Hara. I digress.
Yeah.
But we see the sort of same vignette over and over again, and it sort of amplifies, where we see Michael Fagan struggling, we see him interact with his family, and we see a lot of time spent at the unemployment office.
Yes.
What did you think of all the time being spent with Michael Fagan? What did you feel and take away from it?
For me, I feel like it was important to kind of have those kind of not necessarily the establishing shots, because yes, that we don't need that excessive amount of establishing shots, but we need to establish who this person is. And it would have been very simple to just have everything be from the perspective of the royal family, and just have this guy show up and then deal with maybe the aftermath of it. But it really let us know what was going on societally then,
Mm-hmm.
because most of the season, if we're talking about society, if we're talking about anything outside of the royal family or something that is dealing with the royal family, it's maybe the war, or people's reaction to Diana. And that's
Yes.
really about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this really got, it introduced us to the person behind what had happened. And I feel like it was important to show it from that perspective. And seeing him go through the unemployment line and dealing with the fact that so many people were massively unemployed at the time, and having to go through these things, and his wife left him and took the kids, and he can't get his apartment redone because he needs to have the person who owns the flat be the person who applies for this thing, but his wife is the one who technically has the flat in her name, but she's not going to come around, and because he can't get the flat redone, his kids can't come visit him, which it it all it makes him a relatable person. We understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And
We
I think it's more
it
powerful. I think it's more powerful to have it
Yes.
from his perspective. I think it was very smart that Peter Morgan and the creative team broke away from having it be from the Queen's perspective and having it be from Michael Fagan's perspective, because instead of it being this crazy man that broke into Buckingham Palace to talk to the Queen, we now understand that he's representing, the character Michael Fagan is representing the feeling of greater Great Britain
Yeah.
that Margaret Thatcher at the time, the character, the
The
general
character.
feeling,
Yes.
what we're being presented is that Margaret Thatcher is this sort of tyrant of a character, that she's and one thing that I did write down is that her biggest thing is everyone can be remarkable. Everybody has this potential in them. It's up to them to find it, see it, figure it out.
Yeah.
And you see this character who's like, I've tried
Yeah.
everything, and you really relate to everybody being fed up with her. And I think it was more powerful to have it be from Michael Fagan's point of view, not from the Queen.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, as you said, it would have, or alluded to, it would have been a disservice.
Yes, absolutely. And so I had a little note written as well. Um, and I just wrote this: just because we are willing to work hard doesn't mean that there are opportunities to be had.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that really gets to the core of what the issue with Michael Fagan's character is. Willing to work hard, he's willing to do whatever it takes. Um, but opportunities are just not currently present.
Mm-hmm. Because as he says, he's the prime minister is more focused on this war and the presence of England rather than actually taking care of the people. And we can get to those conversations in a bit, but we see the episode outside of the flashback. We see sort of a series of vignettes that tell the story that Liz and I have been talking about, where we see him try to get a job. He's working in painting. We see him talking to another friend that we don't know their name.
Yeah, man.
And he spends a lot of time, and there's a lot of really interesting shots. So there's time spent with Michael Fagan is interspersed with shots of the royal family. And one thing that is sort of an overarching theme of this episode is palace security and security of the crown.
Yes.
The
Yes.
Margaret Thatcher and Parliament have talked about upping the security around the family, and sort of cracking down, and the Queen doesn't want that. She feels that and she quotes from season 2 of The Crown, which is, this actually did happen when Lord Altrincham wrote his big article criticizing how distant The Crown was and that they needed to be more transparent. And she's openly against having more palace security. She, we've
Yeah.
let down the drawbridge. What would it do drawing it back up again? And
Hmm.
there's a lot of really fun, playful shots where she's at a Buckingham Palace garden party, which are still granted not right now because we're still in the middle of a
Yeah.
pandemic, which is
COVID.
why we're not filming in person. But um, very popular in Buckingham Palace, which date all the way back to the time of Queen Victoria, are the garden parties in the summer, and
Mhm.
especially during the season. And there's wonderful
Yeah.
shots of the receiving line of to the Queen, and everybody's dressed and all happy, and then it'll jump cut in that exact same angle to the unemployment line. And so it's a
Yeah.
wonderful comment of how disconnected everything is around the Queen. And
Hmm.
they're talking about palace security. She doesn't want it. She doesn't find it important. We need to be approachable. We need to feel as if people can talk to us. And it's sort of
Yeah.
foreshadowing what's to come. So there's wonderful interspurts, but we have some really unfortunate scenes with Michael Fagan where we really, our heart aches. And there's the scene at the bar.
Oh.
Aside from what ends up happening, that bar looks fun. I would love to go to that bar. I would love to go to that bar.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but what did you think about this bar scene?
It, I mean, the bar scene, we had already kind of gotten to know him and some of the struggles that he's going through, but the bar scene is really what cemented us into knowing what his personal life was like.
Mm-hmm.
In the bar scene, he kind of runs into his wife who wants to be his ex-wife, and she's there with another guy. And so Fagan and this guy get into it, and um, especially because the guy is like talking about Fagan's wife,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like it's
It's uncomfortable
yeah,
because you feel for him
yeah,
because we've spent so much time, even just a short period, but we spent so much time getting to know him, and
yeah.
there's a wonderful. I really love the acting where there's no lines, when you
Hmm.
see it all internal. You really understand. And there's a really powerful shot where he has his pint and he's looking across the bar and he's watching his estranged wife come in with her new
Yes.
boyfriend, and they make eye contact, and you can see the color drain from her face, you see the color drain from his face, and it's this really
Hmm.
uncomfortable confrontation, that sort of level one of escalation that then gets interspliced with him going back, and there's another weird Wes Anderson shot of him going up his stairs. um,
Yeah.
but one thing, as a fun anecdote, so shortly following that, there is that garden party scene. And we see a band. We see a military
Yeah. Oh,
band
yes.
performing, which warmed my heart. But also, the clarinet community has come out and criticized The Crown. I don't know if you've seen this or our listeners have seen it.
You've talked to me about
I've
this,
talked to Liz
but
about
I
it,
noticed
but
it and
there's a panning shot of the band, and of course, in natural ensemble setup, the clarinets are more towards the front, brass are more towards the back because
Mhm.
of projection and ensemble balance and whatnot. There's a whole philosophy behind it. The point I'm making is there was a clarinet in the front that had this shot in this story supposed to take place in 1982, and he has a ligature and mouthpiece set up from 2019. And
It wasn't
it's
released until
yeah,
2019.
yeah. Who it wasn't released till now, so it's something minute that me being in the clarinet community, because that's the instrument that I play. When the season
Yeah.
came out, like it came out on November 15th, November 16th, and 17th. All these screenshots were coming out of what the hell is this? Why is this ligature here? And it just made me laugh. But
Yeah.
that's just a fun anecdote. Also, have you seen the movie by Mel Brooks, History of the World Part 1?
I've not seen it. There are a lot of Mel Brooks movies that I need to see and I want to see them. I've just not done it yet.
It's fantastic. It has the incomparable Madeline Kahn in it. But the point I'm making, in that film, which upon second viewing of this, made me think about it. So we have these lines and shots in the unemployment office. We spend a lot of time in the unemployment office. And the second time I watched it, it made me think of that scene from History of the World Part 1, because there's a scene where Mel Brooks goes up to the window, the unemployment window, because here in America, we don't have that. At least I haven't seen that system of an unemployment window. It's usually you just file paperwork, mail it off, and you don't talk to someone unless it's on the phone.
Yeah.
Well, over there, we see these lines. And in History of the World Part 1, Mel Brooks is a philosopher. And he goes to the unemployment window, and B. Arthur is the one behind there. And she asked like the same questions. Have you had any work in the past 2 weeks? And he goes, well, I'm a stand-up philosopher. And B. Arthur goes, oh, you're a bullshitter. Well, and she goes, and they ask a series of questions. It's this really funny little bit, and B. Arthur really plays it over the top. But that's what these unemployment lines upon second viewing made me think of.
Yeah.
But back on topic. So he sits down, talks to this one woman, which Michael Fagan in these unemployment lines has a fun sense of humor. You know, he goes, you know, did you do for work? Oh, I'm Bond. Oh, international espionage. He has fun, but the woman behind the screen is not having it. She's over it.
Yep. No.
And he goes, hey, I'd like to file a complaint. Who can I talk to? And she goes, talk to your local MP. And so that's what he does. He waits outside the office, waits for the person to go in, and goes and talks and goes, hi, I'm unhappy. This system's flawed. This system sucks. Everybody's suffering. How can you support this woman? And he's making his list of grievances down, and the MP goes, I will make a note of it. And Michael Fagan, dead ass, goes, no, you won't. Well, yes, I will. No, you won't.
No, you won't.
And he takes his pen, writes in all the notes, and he goes, see, look, there we go. I made note of it. I'll pass it on. And he then goes, who else can I talk to? Who else? Michael Fagan has had it at his end. He's lost custody of his kids. He can't renovate his apartment. He has no work. His life is falling apart. And you can physically feel his anguish through the screen. And he jokingly goes, the MP goes, well, if, next person you can talk to is the Queen, but good luck with that. And he basically looks at the guy and goes, you want to bet? And sure enough, we see a shot of him late in the night. And this is where I will say this character of Michael Fagan is smart on where he broke in. He went in through the way back.
Yeah.
No one really realizes how big Buckingham Palace grounds are. It's huge. Massive in the heart of London. And he goes through the back. And what are your thoughts on his break-ins?
So my initial thought, and what I actually have written down here, during the first break-in scene, my thought, and verbatim, this is what I wrote, this makes me want to play hide and seek in the palace.
Yes, because there are so many places there where he was hiding. So it reminded me as if, you went downstairs in the middle of the night to get a snack and you don't want your parents to hear you, so you hop around.
Yeah.
I very much agree.
Yeah. But he's kind of going from place to place and trying to find his way. But first time he ends up kind of in, I believe they call it the gift room. And he drinks a 6 pound bottle of 6 pound, British pound, not 6 pounds
bottle
of wine.
A 6 pound, a literal 6 pound. That's the weight
take
of it.
10, but I had to. But a 6 pound bottle of wine, and opens it, drinks some of it. And at the time, the Queen wasn't actually there. Correct me if I'm wrong. She wasn't actually there.
She wasn't.
So he's just oh, Well, and we didn't actually see him like trying to break into her bedroom or anything. He broke the vase and he's just like, I think I'm gonna head out.
Yeah.
Um, no,
And
somebody spotted him.
yeah,
Somebody
someone
spotted him
spotted
and
him.
then he
Someone
ran.
spotted him like
But
creeping into the door, and someone spotted
yeah.
him, and then he ran. I did appreciate this is where the in both the break-ins, the creative team and the editors had fun. You can feel them having
Oh
fun. It
yes.
felt like a cartoon because they're
Yes.
talking about, oh, it's a slow night, nothing's really going on, and in the cameras you can see him walking room to room. You see him like hide behind a corner and there's people walking behind him.
Yeah.
This is where they had fun shooting this and editing this. It was fun to watch.
Definitely.
But one thing that
Yeah.
he did in his first break in was he sat on her throne in the throne room.
Yes. I
He
loved that. I
sat
loved
on her
that.
throne. And of course, it's incredibly taboo to sit on the queen's throne. You do not
Oh
sit on the queen's
yes.
throne, and it's really only there um, for figurative purposes. You know, of course,
Yeah.
in the ballroom, whenever they have a state dinner, behind her is her and Philip's thrones. In the throne room, there's where they are. In most of the palaces and castles, there's usually a throne room where it's there. It's not really used anymore. Um,
Yeah.
but it's very taboo because the Duke of York sat down on there. There's photos that have surfaced of him sitting on there. If you watch the Graham Norton show, there's talk of Sir Ian McKellen accidentally sitting on it. He's like walking around and he
Oh
like
my
accidentally sat down and went, "Oh shit!" But he sat down on her
Sir Ian
throne.
McKellen.
Yes, Sir Ian McKellen. He sat
Yeah.
down. I believe if that's the story I'm thinking of, they're walking around and they were like, "Oh, here we
Yeah.
are." Um, the throne room is mainly used for official photographs now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so he breaks in, gets caught, leaves, and
But
they
doesn't actually like get caught.
no,
He is spotted and he runs. And he
yes,
happens to not get caught.
yeah, he
So
doesn't get caught. He gets spotted, runs away, and the Queen's private secretary talks to her and Prince Philip and goes, "Hi, this happened. The police are aware, but we're gonna have to tell Downing Street. We're gonna have to tell the Prime Minister." And the Queen goes, "Do we really need to do that? I mean, he didn't.
yeah.
I wasn't there. He didn't really do anything bad. He was just there. So can we?" She's like, "I don't want to increase security," and she makes a point
Yeah.
of going, "Buckingham Palace is like a prison already. We don't need to make it even more like
Yes.
one."
Yeah.
And so they go, "Okay, we're not going to say anything." So they don't say
Yeah.
anything, and they sort of continue as they are. And we then have the second incident with Michael Fagan and his
hmm
family at the playground.
Oh yeah.
And
Like I'm
then
trying to think and yeah, this
we
blow
then
up.
have the second incident at the playground. I felt so bad for those kids.
It's
It's so
yeah.
he goes to a playground where his two, I think it's two kids. I think it's two kids.
I believe so.
I believe it's two kids. His wife, his estranged wife, and the wife's boyfriend are all there, and he's basically like, "Hey, I want to see my kids," and
hmm
it escalates towards a physical fight.
Yeah. It's
It's sad. And then he now is at it because then he has that scene where the people go, "You cannot have custody of your kids unless it's in a public area." Well, they let out all these rules, but they go,
yeah.
you are relinquished because of your behavior. You are relinquishing your parental custody of your children."
Yeah.
And then we have a cut where we get to see the Queen doing her nightly routine, her
Yeah.
her unget ready with me routine that beauty gurus do on
Yes.
YouTube. And we see her brush her teeth. One, her bathroom is really pretty. I'm gonna
hmm
very much say that. I love her bathroom. Um, but also, okay, I have a thought. This popped in my head
Okay.
upon second viewing. So we see the Queen. She says her prayer, gets in bed, rolls over on her side, and when you're looking at the bed, so my face is at the footboard, headboard is this way. She's sleeping
hmm
on the right hand side of the bed on her side. And it's like 10
hmm
o'clock at night. Michael Fagan gets there to break. He breaks in again, and we see these comical shots of they're going, "It's a slow night, nothing's happening," and we see him bebopping around the palace. Yeah, he then breaks in, and it is, I want to say like 5:30 in the morning, maybe. I'm throwing an arbitrary number.
Probably. It's early enough that she would normally be waking up because her tea arrives while he is in there.
Mm-hmm. But it's just early enough that throws her off.
Yeah.
But she's in the exact same position. Sleeping. She's in the exact same position. Covers have not moved. Everything is the same. And the only time I have slept like that is if I am sick or I've taken enough ZQuil and NyQuil together where I physically do not move. How is it possible? I had a problem with that shot
because she's a queen
and she doesn't, and you don't mess up the wig. I think it was a matter of, okay, Olivia, don't fuck your wig up. Just lay down, stay there. We're gonna cross light, so just don't move. I think it was a matter of don't mess your hair up. But my first thought was, we all move when we sleep. How is it that what? She's not dead. What is this? But
That's how she stayed alive this long. That's how she stayed alive this long.
That's how she's outlived everyone. She doesn't move when she sleeps. She just rolls on her side, and that is that. But now,
in the middle of the night, there's Irish morning.
Yeah, we know you know something's wrong with her health if you come into the room and she's rolled over on her other side. That's how you know she's sick. She's rolled over. But now we have the infamous. He's broken in. It's early in the morning. And he finally has his meeting with the queen.
Yeah.
What did you think of this scene?
I think this is probably Olivia Coleman's best performance of the series.
Yes.
Olivia Coleman pulls out a wonderful performance in this, and it's just you go from her being shocked, oh my god, there's this stranger in my bedroom, to actually kind of listening to him and not necessarily relating, but understanding where he was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obviously Fagan is awkward in this. He had actually cut open his hand, so it's just like, oh, you're bleeding, you should probably get that taken care of.
Those shots made me laugh. Those shots made me laugh because he's going in her bathroom, washing his hands. She's ringing the bell and no one's coming because they're vacuuming. She's picking up. She's calling the phone. They're off doing shit. Yeah. No one will answer. And those made me laugh. And I think Olivia Coleman of just like, don't touch me, don't touch me. It sort of reminded me of her performance in The Favorite, especially in the scene where she has her, she comes out all excited. Oh my God, look, I did my makeup. And Rachel, I think it's Rachel Weisz, looks at her and goes, really? Did you do your makeup? Did you do it? I think it's Rachel Weisz, I think. And she goes back and a footman looks at her and goes, did you look at me? Did you look at me? And it's this whole bit back and forth that's really funny. And I think Olivia got to flex a little bit of her natural comedy chops with her overdone reactions. But you are right. This is one of the best performances Olivia gave as the queen. So Michael Fagan comes in, he opens a curtain, sits down on bed and kind of stares at her just like, I'm here. She's freaking out, and he's like, and he's like, don't worry, I'm not here to hurt you, I'm not here to steal, I'm not here to do anything, I need to talk to you. And one thing I find very powerful is she goes, did you do this? And he goes, I've done everything. I've written letters, I met my MP, I've been here, I have done everything that your government tells me to do, and I have gotten nothing. You are my last hope. And at that point, you see her body language and her face change. And you feel that she understands that this is a man at his wit's end. Yeah. He cannot handle anymore. And, of course, comic bits aside where she's ringing to try to get attention and no one's coming to her. Even Prince Philip isn't there. He's he, I think, off in Windsor, and he comes later that morning. But then they sit down at a settee, and he goes, What happened to the moral fiber of this country when you were a decent human being, when families mattered? And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you know, she goes, well, things bounce back. And he goes, I thought that too. I thought things were going to bounce back.
Yeah.
I thought this, I thought that, but jobs dried up. My marriage dried up. This dried up. And he's like, I did everything I was supposed to, what I was told. I've tried. I can't do anymore. I'm defeated. I don't know what to do. And he openly looks at her and goes, Margaret Thatcher's coming for your job.
Yeah.
And you see her kind of realize that, her suspicions about her are right.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you can see them. They were already butting heads with the Falklands War. They're already, you can see friction beginning. But now they completely do not get along at all. And the final thoughts of this is Michael Fagan goes, we as a country are broken. We need help.
Yeah.
We can't do this all on our own. She says about moral fiber and this and uniting, and we are far from that. We are not this country that she says we are. Please do something to fix it.
Yeah.
And then her maid comes in.
Yeah. With tea.
With tea.
Morning tea. And it's just like, could you kindly fetch a policeman?
And she goes, oh, yeah. And she kind of backs out and scurries. And I love the conversation that they then have when Michael Fagan knows the police are coming. Yeah. And she goes, do you have anything else to say to me? Do you have anything else you need to let me know? And he goes, no. I've said everything I need to say. And when the police come in, she goes, be gentle, be delicate. He means no harm. Be gentle with him. And at this point, we are now at where the episode began.
Yeah.
And he has a meeting. Well, the Queen then has a meeting with the Prime Minister. And she goes, on behalf of the police, Metropolitan Police, and blah, 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 I'm so sincerely sorry. And then they have this conversation where we really see that they don't meet eye to eye. The Queen is basically she's advocating for Fagan, going, we need to do more.
Yeah.
Not everybody is your father, Margaret Thatcher. Not everyone is like that. Some people need help. You say everybody has this capability to be powerful and blah, but what gives? What did you think of this scene?
This scene, I mean, I already did not like the character of Margaret Thatcher. I believe on here, one of my notes is God Thatcher is full of herself. But this kind of really cemented things to me. And then what followed with the parade, really solidified the, how much of disdain that I had for Margaret Thatcher's character.
Yes, I very much agree. Well, fun fact, I watched a featurette about that the Crown put out about this particular scene, more specifically about the parade, but I'll get to that in a minute. But yes, it really made it made me feel as if Margaret Thatcher, which one of the running things that Fagan says to the MP is he goes. The MP goes, I work for Margaret Thatcher, and Fagan goes, no, I'm a constituent. You work for me. I voted. Yeah, we put you here. You vote. You work for us. And it's a sort of commentary on, this idea, beginning commentary on them, on elected officials. Who do they work for? Do they work for the main person in charge of the party, or do they work for the people that elected them in here? Where do their interests lie? And it really solidified that, at least the narrative we are being presented is that she really didn't have the best interests of the country at heart. And she cuts the meeting short. You can tell the Queen is trying to advocate and push and push and push, and she cuts the meeting short and goes, I have my parade I need to go to. And it is a parade celebrating the end of the Falkland War. The Falklands War is done. Britain is triumphant against the Argentinian resistance, and there's a big parade. And Margaret Thatcher is there with the Lord Mayor of London as everybody comes and salutes. And Philip makes a comment on, hey, do you think it's weird that she's taking... No, it's the Queen going, do you think it's weird that she's taking the salute? And Philip's like, no, I don't necessarily mind. I think it's whatever. She's the one that brought us there. Cool, fine, wonderful, great. But apparently in the little featurette that I watched on YouTube that's from The Crown about this particular scene is that if the sovereign's not there, the Lord Mayor stands in their place. And the Prime Minister is supposed to be ways away because they're supposed to salute to the Queen or whomever is sovereign, because when they take their oath to be in the armed service, they, in this instance, they go to protect Queen and country. Yeah. The Prime Minister is supposed to be separate. She's not. She's right there. And they replicated those newsreels because they intersplice actual news footage with what they replicated. And that rubbed the Queen very much the wrong way.
Yeah.
It pissed her off.
Absolutely.
But this episode, everybody is remarkable. Everybody can be remarkable. But as shown, sometimes people need help. And at this time period, there wasn't a lot of help. What were your leaving this episode, even all the times you've watched it? All the times you've watched it. What were your closing thoughts leaving the episode?
Well, and I'll say this because I've watched a majority of this season 3 times over now, 2 to 3 times over. This is probably my favorite episode of the season. And it's refreshing to have a look outside of the palace and see what life is like. But I feel like this is almost a turning point for the character of Queen Elizabeth in terms of her relationship with Margaret Thatcher. She was trying to be friendly and everything, but this was really the straw that broke the camel's back that we'll end up seeing more of an issue with in, I believe, episode 8.
Eight. 8's where we see a lot of issues.
And this is where the I'm going to reference the next episode. This was the point where she did not bend, she broke.
Yes.
And I feel like this episode has some fun, like, comedic beats, and if you're watching the final break-in scene where he has come into her bedroom, there are moments that, as Hayden pointed them out, they can be funny. But if you are somebody who has ever worried about somebody breaking into your house, they're truly terrifying.
No, yeah, they're absolutely terrifying. There's a wonderful beat after Michael Fagan gets taken away, and it's just on Olivia Coleman, and she like sits back, breathes, like puts her head down, and she starts crying. Yeah, she does that. She leans back, sighs, and just, because it's very real, Yeah, he could say he means no harm, but how do you know that for sure? So the Queen was very, very scared. Justifiably so.
And so I would say, in terms of this season of The Crown, if you are looking for an episode that focuses more on the Queen as opposed to Diana, because I feel like this is a very Diana-centric season, because of course it is. But if you're looking for probably the best episode that is Queen-centric, this would probably be my number 1 pick.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. In seriousness, I would say episode 8, which we'll get to, is Queen-centric. Yes. But in my mind, that's more fun. That they have more fun with it. Where this wasn't fun. This wasn't a fun episode. This was serious, but it was enlightening. I don't know if that's the word that I'm looking for, but I definitely enjoyed this episode. I feel like the pacing of it was up to the point that, like, you're not waiting a whole lot. A lot is happening and transpiring, and you're meeting these characters, and it's not rehashing of old items. It's
I agree. a continuously moving forward plot.
I agree. And in the entire series as a whole, we really haven't spent time outside the royal family too often.
No. No.
Of course, we've gone to other countries, especially in the first
Yeah.
season when there was the storyline with Group Captain Peter Townsend. We spent time outside and with him, but he was
Yes.
still in the inside circle. And in season 2, when Princess Margaret's spending time with Tony, Anthony Armstrong Jones, and she's outside the family, but it's still
Yeah.
a royal character. And in season 3.
Yes.
The only one that I can think of, in season 2, there was an episode about Lord Altrincham, but there was still more time emphasized with the Queen. It didn't necessarily feel, I probably need to rewatch it, but
Yeah. Same.
there was, with Lord Altrincham, it was, granted, a different part in history, but it still, there was still this closeness with the royals. And in season 3, I'm kind of going through my mental Rolodex here. We really don't spend much time. No, yet we go to Wales with Prince Charles, but again, there's still that royal figure. We really haven't spent time 100% outside with a figure that isn't directly affected by the royal family.
Yeah.
So it was very refreshing to have that kind of episode. But this episode, very good.
Yeah.
Wonderful
Very good.
episode.
Very good.
Did we do the thing?
Good. We did the thing. We
Awesome.
did the thing.
Wonderful. If you liked spending time with us, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share, hit that little bell notification off to the side, get notified. We upload videos every Tuesday. If you also enjoy spending more time with us, we have a podcast, Classical Chats with Hayden and Liz, uploads every Monday. Go ahead and find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor. So subscribe, rate, review, share. We have an email, classicalchatspodcast@gmail.com. If you have any recommendations, any funny performance stories, or anything at all, go ahead, hit us up there, email us. We have social medias. You can find those: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Link below.
Yep, linked are all down below in the description box. The link to our everything will be down in the description box below. How to get a hold of us. And with that, everyone, have a good rest of your day and
Stay royal. Bye.
bye.